F9, The Fast Saga, or Fast 9, or Fast and Furious 9 is a movie that's finally coming. I mean, after a very, very long delay, but it's actually gonna be here. This movie was directed by Justin Lin, who once again returns to the franchise after Furious 6 in 2013. And in this film, things gets a little complicated because the family has to take on one of Dom's very own, his long-lost brother, Jacob Toretto, played by John Cena! And this creates an interesting situation in not a very good way because suddenly they're having to take on an actual family member, and there's a lot of history there which we don't quite know yet as to why things have become the way that they are. And I'm not going to go into that because, spoilers, I don't want to ruin anything for you in case you plan on going and seeing this movie. Justin Lin directed 4 Fast and Furious movies in succession starting in 2006 with Tokyo Drift. A movie that's got a lot more love in the years since it came out, rather than when it first came out, when it was pretty derided. Fast and Furious, which came out in 2009, was kind of a transitional phase for the franchise, where it was trying to figure out what it wanted to be, and so it started experimenting with a few different things. Once Fast 5 came along, though, the films found their core center, they found their emotional core, their action core, and they just sort of decided to give in to that. And ever since then, I've liked all of them. Even 8 and Hobbs and Shaw, which are a lot more divisive, I had a lot of fun with. I thought they were pretty entertaining movies. And so, with that streak going for the last few films, I was very excited to see what Justin Lin would bring to 9. F9 throws everything and the damn kitchen sink at the screen because it is freaking nuts. This movie is absolute balls to the wall insanity. There is no mercy when it comes to the kind of shit this movie pulls in a few moments. And it's very self-aware in that regard of what exactly it's doing in those more over-the-top sequences. There are things that are done here where, first of all, I gotta give credit to the stunt team for this movie because some of the things that happen in this, and I'm not just talking about stuff towards the ending, the opening sequence itself, the stuff that they pull is wild, and they deserve a big round of applause and maybe a 500% increase in their, salaries for the stuff that they pull in this. The cast chemistry, once again, remains unchanged. Once these guys come onto screen, it's like no time has passed. They are still very much in, they're very much a family, and you can definitely tell that throughout as you're watching this movie. There's a pretty great peppy soundtrack also to go along with the movie, a pretty catchy one actually, one that I've been listening to for a few days now. And the film is actually kind of interesting in a lot of ways too in terms of story. What I'm not really going to go into, and what is easily maybe one of my favorite aspects of the entire film, was the Dom and Jacob storyline. Because you get to know a lot about these two brothers and stuff that has happened. And while I feel like this could be divisive in the sense that, we've never heard of a brother before this. What is this? This has come out of nowhere. It's like they're pulling ideas out of, all kinds of corners now. Despite that feeling, I found this to be very interesting, and frankly, whenever the film went into this part of the story, it was the most interesting part of the story. There is another part of the story in this movie, which is about a satellite that can cause global annihilation, and the family has to stop it, and that was easily the least interesting part of the film for me. And whenever it got to that part, I was like, yeah, that's whatever, end of the world stuff, sure. Now, something that comes up in conversations every now and then when it comes to movies like Fast and Furious is the idea of how much is too much. We often talk about this quite a bit, and even in the movies before this that have come out, that idea has been tossed around and has been commented on quite often. Like, these movies are still coming out, they're still doing crazy stunts. At what point in time do they do the ultimate stunt and everything just, that's it? They don't go any further from there. And F9 definitely pushes that envelope, not just a bit more, but like in the sense that it just completely gives into that urge, and it does stuff which is so batshit insane that question you ask yourself a lot more often with this movie rather than any of the other movies before. I remember Fate did a lot of crazy stuff, but I still remember most people enjoying that movie for the most part because it was still in that self-awareness cloud, and it didn't take itself too seriously. It knew what it was being. F9 makes a few mistakes in this regard because it does take itself a bit too seriously at times, even in those moments. And so, while I praised the over-the-top stuff earlier in the review, it was also paradoxical for me in terms of the overall viewing because at times it just went a bit further than it should have for the sake of it going a bit further, and it acted as a deterrent to the film quite often. Now we're in the 9th movie of the core series, the 10th overall, and we still have a few more movies lined up. 2 more in this core series, F10 and F11. So now I'm thinking in my head, like, where do you go from here? Because if this was 9, then you're gonna get crazier with 10 and 11, and it's concerning because if you follow the same route, that can really mess things up in the long run. Also, the film drags a bit because it's 2 hours and 25 minutes long. It really does not need to be 2 hours and 25 minutes. There could have easily been about 15-20 minutes of this shaved off, and it could have easily been a much more compelling and much more, solid movie. And what's even funnier to me is that pretty much all the core movies so far have had extended or director's cuts on the Blu-ray, which means we're probably going to get something for 9 too, I assume, which will probably push this thing past 2.5 hours. So that's going to be pretty fun, wouldn't it? As far as the story goes, I don't want to go, like I said, into too many spoilers, but it does pull some things that are very polarizing, I'm sure are going to be divisive to a lot of people watching the movie. In particular, Han. Han comes back in this movie. I don't want to talk too much about how he's come back. The explanation they give to him, surprisingly, was not as far-fetched as I thought it was going to be. Which is interesting. Given the rest of the movie, I was expecting something really outlandish, and surprisingly, it's not quite as much as some of the other stuff in this movie. So I guess the praise here is that they actually came up with a somewhat of a justifiable reason for him being in this. That's all I'll say about that. Even at the same time, though, I feel like it's going to be polarizing because some people will see it and they will get very, very upset, and they probably think, oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. But then again, like I said, the other movies have had a better time of writing that line of ridiculousness and entertainment a lot better than this one. This one, I feel like it sort of gets really, really shaky at points, and it really makes the movie suffer as a result of it. But overall, I thought F9 was not terrible. It was not the worst Fast and Furious movie, as I've been hearing a lot of people saying. It's nowhere near the weakest one for me either. It was sort of in the middle. It was fine. It was decent. It was enjoyable still, for the most part. I just think that question I brought up earlier, which is how far is too far, that question has to be noted, because next time it's going to be a lot more and it's going to be crazier, and I just hope that next time there's a better handling of what makes things tick better than this movie had. I'm going to give F9, The Fast Saga, a 7 out of 10. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Look forward to more reviews very soon. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe. I'll see you guys at the movies.